kid-born Curtis Jackson sold crack at 12, learned song structure from Jam Master Jay, got shot outside his grandmother's house, then sold 872,000 albums in 1 week. This is the whole story of 50 Cent. Not just the bulletproof legend, but the long, brutal transformation from Queen Street Kid to global celebrity, business mogul, actor, and one of hip-hop's most cinematic survivors. Curtis James Jackson III was born on July 6, 1975, in South Jamaica, Queens. His mother, Sabrina, was only a teenager when she had him. His father was absent, and the first world Curtis knew was not music studios or red carpets. It was the crack-era New York of the 1980s, where money, danger, and survival lived on the same block. Sabrina sold drugs to provide, and Curtis grew up watching adults move with fear and power. Then, when he was 8, Sabrina died in a fire under circumstances his family believed were no accident. In the mythology of 50 Cent, this is the first wound, a boy losing his mother to the streets before he even understood the rules of the streets. After Sabrina's death, Curtis moved in with his grandparents. Their house became his base, his shelter, and later the place where fate almost ended him. But as a child, he was not yet a rapper. He was a kid learning how to read rooms, hide pain, and fight for space in a crowded home. By around 11, Curtis was boxing. That mattered. Boxing gave him rhythm, discipline, and a taste for controlled violence. In the gym, you learned not to blink. On the street, you learned not to look weak. By 12, Curtis was hustling crack. He has talked openly about hiding drugs from his grandparents and living a double life. Grandson at home, dealer outside. He was arrested as a teenager, sent to boot camp, and learned early that the system did not see him as a future star. It saw another kid from Queens headed toward prison or death. But Curtis had something different from the average hustler: an obsession with strategy. He studied how people moved, how fear worked, how reputation traveled faster than money. Even his rap name was Strategy. He took the name 50 Cent from Kelvin Martin, a Brooklyn stick-up man from the 1980s, known for robbing whoever had something worth taking. Curtis later explained the name meant change, adapting to survive. It was not just a name, it was a character, a street comic book identity before the world ever saw the superhero version. The music began as a way out, but not an easy one. Around the mid-1990s, Curtis met Jam Master Jay of Run DMC, one of hip-hop's founding architects. Jay did not just hand him fame. He taught him how songs worked: count bars, write hooks, structure verses, breathe on beat, make a record instead of just rapping hard. That training was crucial. The image of 50 Cent is violence and menace, but the secret weapon was pop discipline. He learned how to make danger sound catchy. In 1999, Columbia Records signed him. He recorded Power of the Dollar, an album full of hunger, humor, and ruthless observation. One track, How to Rob, imagined robbing famous rappers and industry figures. It was outrageous, funny, disrespectful, and perfectly engineered for attention. But attention in hip-hop can be gasoline. 50 was building buzz, but he was also making enemies. Then came May 24, 2000. Curtis was outside his grandmother's home in South Jamaica, sitting in a car when a gunman approached and opened fire. He was shot 9 times: hand, arm, hip, legs, chest, face. A bullet tore through his cheek and affected his tongue, giving his voice part of the slurred menace that later became unmistakable. He survived, but survival did not come with a victory parade. Columbia shelved Power of the Dollar and dropped him. Radio was cautious. Labels were scared. In the music business, being too close to real violence can make executives vanish. This is the part many people miss. The shooting did not make him famous overnight. It made him radioactive. So 50 did what street survivors do. He changed routes. If the labels would not push him, he would push himself. He went to the mixtape circuit with G-Unit, alongside Lloyd Banks and Tony Yayo, later Young Buck. They took other artists' beats, rewrote the hooks, and made the songs feel like they belonged to them. This was early 2000s hip-hop warfare. Burned CDs, street corners, barbershops, car trunks, bootleg tables, and DJs moving music faster than corporations could control. Mixtapes like 50 Cent is the Future and No Mercy, No Fear turned blacklisting into mythology. He sounded hungry, funny, paranoid, and unbeatable. Wonksta became the taunt that followed his enemies around. The Ja Rule and Murder Inc. feud became one of hip-hop's defining early 2000s conflicts. It was not just gossip, it was a cultural shift. 50 represented a colder, more street-coded realism at a moment when radio rap was shiny and melodic. He weaponized authenticity, comedy, and intimidation all at once. Then Eminem heard Guess Who's Back. In Detroit, Eminem recognized something rare, a rapper with a story so extreme it sounded fictional, but with hooks sharp enough for mainstream radio. Eminem brought him to Dr. Dre. In 2002, 50 signed a reported $1 million deal with Shady, Aftermath, and Interscope. Suddenly, the blacklisted rapper had the two most powerful cosigns in rap: Eminem's cultural force and Dr. Dre's production empire. In 2003, Get Rich or Die Tryin' arrived like a blockbuster film. Inda Club, produced by Dr. Dre and Mike Elizondo, was not just a single, it was a global alarm. Go Shorty, It's Your Birthday became a phrase people used even when it was nobody's birthday. The album sold about 872,000 copies in its first week in the United States. For a man labels had been afraid to touch, that number was revenge in mathematical form. The album worked because it balanced contradiction. Many Men was trauma turned into prophecy. Patiently Waiting sounded like a villain entering through smoke. 21 Questions showed he could be vulnerable without sounding soft. PIMP turned menace into a tropical strut. 50 was not only selling survival, he was selling charisma. He made danger feel cinematic. After that, 50 built an empire around the G-Unit brand. Lloyd Banks brought punchlines, Tony Yayo brought loyalty and chaos, Young Buck brought Southern fire. G-Unit clothing, sneakers, albums, and mixtapes turned a Queen's crew into a commercial machine. But the same aggression that built the empire also created constant conflict. Feuds with Ja Rule, The Game, Fat Joe, Jadakiss, and others kept 50 in headlines. He understood attention like a stock market. Beef was not random to him. It was pressure, narrative, promotion. Yet the cost was real. Friends became rivals. Crew members drifted. The superhero had built a kingdom, but every kingdom attracts war. Hollywood came next. In 2005, Get Rich or Die Tryin' became a semi-autobiographical film directed by Jim Sheridan. It was not universally praised, but it completed the myth: the hustler, the shooting, the music, the rise. 50 moved into acting, producing, and building himself as more than a rapper. The smartest pivot was business. His Vitaminwater deal became legendary after Coca-Cola bought Glacéau in 2007 for $1 billion. Reports estimated 50 earned tens of millions, sometimes claimed around 60 to 100 million, depending on the source. Whether the exact number was myth or math, the message was clear. He had turned street-level risk assessment into corporate negotiation. But 50's story is not a clean victory march. He had lawsuits, failed ventures, public family conflicts, industry fallouts, and in 2015 he filed for bankruptcy protection after major legal judgments, including a case tied to a leaked private video involving Lastonia Leviston. To casual fans, bankruptcy sounded like collapse. To people who study business and law, it was also a defensive move: reorganize debts, protect assets, and survive another kind of war. By 2017, he had emerged from bankruptcy. Once again, the pattern repeated: hit, fall, adapt, return. Then television gave him a second cultural prime. With Power on Stars, 50 became an executive producer and actor in a crime drama that felt connected to the same themes that shaped his music: loyalty, betrayal, ambition, money, and the cost of wanting more. Power became a franchise, proving he could move from soundtrack to screen world building. For a generation that knew him from memes and Instagram trolling, television reintroduced him as a producer, with instincts for pacing, casting, and audience appetite. By the time he received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 2020, the symbolism was almost absurd. The boy from South Jamaica, the teenager arrested with drugs, the rapper shot 9 times, the artist dropped by Columbia, now had his name cemented into Hollywood culture. In 2022, he appeared at the Super Bowl halftime show with Dr. Dre, Eminem, Snoop Dogg, Mary J. Blige, and Kendrick Lamar, recreating the upside-down entrance from Inda Club. It was a victory lap for an era of hip-hop once treated as dangerous outsider music, now standing at the center of American entertainment. The story of 50 Cent matters because it is not just celebrity biography. It is a history of late 20th century New York, the crack epidemic, the mixtape economy, the collision of street credibility and corporate capitalism, and the way hip-hop turns pain into product without ever fully escaping the pain. He can be ruthless, funny, generous, petty, brilliant, and self-destructive, sometimes in the same week. That contradiction is why the story lasts. Curtis Jackson did not travel a straight road from thug to celebrity. He moved like a comic book anti-hero through burning rooms,